With how many games there are available on the Nintendo Switch, there are probably a few underrated Switch games that have slipped past your radar. Frankly, it comes as no surprise, especially with how many big-ticket first-party releases the system has seen as of late. But if you're looking for the next adventure, we've got you covered. In terms of Nintendo franchises, the Mario RPGs are some of the best, but most frequently overlooked. This is a real shame, given that over the years, Mario RPGs have continued to impress, with the latest being a great continuation of the joyful stories the series is known for. Mario and Luigi Brothership launching right at the tail end of the Nintendo Switch's lifetime was perhaps the main reason it seems to have gone under the radar. But rest assured, it's well worth your time. In their latest adventure, the mustachioed brothers are whisked away to the land of Concordia and on a quest to reunite its fragmented lands following the destruction of the unitary that once connected them. It's a tale with a strong narrative theme that the bonds between friends, family, and even foes have innate power. In classic Nintendo style, every possible aspect of the game centers itself around its morals to charming effect. Don't let this one pass you by. Kirby games tend to get overshadowed by their much more famous peers, Mario, Link, I'm looking at you, which is a real shame as they're often filled with brilliant ideas and stuffed to the brim with personality. Kirby and the Forgotten Lands is a great example of this, with deceptively simple combat and traversal that evolves and deepens as the game goes on. This is definitely not the game you may expect it to be on first blush, and it's well worth checking out. As you make your way through the mysterious ruins of human civilization, you'll use Kirby's inhale ability to steal abilities from enemies. Every now and then, Kirby can even wrap his adorable chops around larger objects, like cars and vending machines, leading to some genuinely hilarious bits of slapstick action. Eventually, you'll be taking on bosses, performing dodges, and going in for slow mission attacks, and chaining together special moves. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown came out at the start of 2024, and as a result, it's been somewhat overlooked in GOTY discussions so far. It's Metroidvania, more side-scroll designs, helping many skipped the game, though we'd recommend you absolutely make the time to play it. New Prince Sargon is a brilliant character possessing a whole host of new skills as well as some familiar ones that stack up to make him a real blast to control. This, paired with excellent boss battles, a great parry system, and some smart twists on the Metroidvania genre, make Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown a must-walk on Nintendo Switch. Enjoy jazz, bright colors, and rhythm-based violence? Then Ape Out may be for you. This top-down single-player beat-eming up is sure to be unlike anything else you've ever played. Players take on the role of a gorilla frantically trying to escape from gun-wielding humans through a series of mazes, each one different from the last. Kill the humans in your way, and use others as shields as you make your way through the labyrinths to victory. This game is about timing and rhythm as much as anticipating your enemies. Ape Out gives you the satisfying feeling of absolutely mowing over your opponents if everything goes right, even though you're just trying to escape. While the gameplay is really rather simple, everything in Ape Out is elevated by the frenetic jazz soundtrack that adapts to the situation, as well as the art, which proves you don't need much to turn out a thrilling action game. Set in the same universe as Endless Space 1 and 2, Dungeon of the Endless is a roguelike that has you making your way through a crashed spaceship full of prisoners. Upon entering each room of the ship, your heroes battle any enemy inside automatically and secure the room as theirs once successful. You're trying to both win the battles that await you and keep the rooms you've secured safe from new opponents. Dungeon of the Endless is both a game about battling, defending, and managing resources to keep the ship secure. This combination of different genres makes Dungeon of the Endless so interesting and challenging. As with many roguelikes, the battles themselves are difficult and you lose characters permanently, but there is so much more at stake than just characters that this game will keep you strategizing for a long long time. A remake called Endless Dungeon is in the works, and hopefully that will get the game the attention it deserves. Not a lot of people play visual novels or even a lot of Japanese games, so we can understand if this went under, but upon release, 13 Sentinels, Aegis Rim was one of the biggest surprises of 2020. This game tells the story of 13 characters who, when strange things start to happen to them, such as a talking cat invading one character's school, start to question their reality. Across different time zones, all of them will eventually lose sight of each other and meet again, all to find out they have been chosen to pilot a group of mechs and save the world. There is much more to 13 Sentinels than this short summary can provide. It is a story that will make you exclaim in surprise, scratch your head in confusion, and cheer with each baffling revelation. Most of the story is told by you following conversations and picking up context clues, but there are also strategy mech battles for you to overcome. Bad North is a beautifully animated Switch game that puts you in charge of an army of Viking warriors beset on all sides, and we mean all sides. You can see the entire island so that you can plan your defense accordingly. The real-time strategy is based on simple mechanics, yet can quickly get taxing if you aren't paying close attention to the layout of the islands themselves, which are effectively 3D puzzles for you to figure out how best to defend yourself. It's a bit of a mystery how this game could land on a list of underrated Switch games, seeing as everyone loves Vikings, but Bad North's minimalistic look may have turned people off. Watching approaching boats from the mist, with the slow thud of drums in the distance, is satisfying no matter how many times you experience it. Developer Fail Better Games proved its knack for stories with Sunless Sea, but the sequel, Sunless Skies, really shines thanks to not only a fresh batch of great stories to discover, but also better ways to get into the game for all those new to the series. The game itself is easy to explain. You steer a magical steam train through the world of Albion, going from station to station in search of anything that is either interesting or that can help your crew stay alive. On the way, you encounter eldritch monstrosities, the vastness of space, as well as members of fallen London's working class, as well as its elites. Each story you encounter hinges on your decisions, and battle, while slightly repetitive, is an often unavoidable yet thrilling outcome. Lovers of good stories shouldn't sleep on Sunless Skies. It's likely among the more underrated Switch games because there is lots to read, but it's also a game that offers a world like no other. Oxenfree is an excellent, underrated Switch game for those who love narrative adventures. You play as Alex, a teenager who goes on a weekend trip to an island housing a military facility with her friends and stepbrother. Unwittingly, the teens open up a supernatural rift on the island, causing things to go a bit awry. By a bit awry, we mean ghosts. They unleash ghosts on the island. Oxenfree is largely choice-based. You're presented with various dialogue options ranging from classic teenage grumpiness to optimism, while bigger choices impact how the game plays out. Not being too gameplay heavy may have caused Oxenfree to be overlooked, but the dialogue is stellar, both thanks to genuinely fun writing and good voice acting. Its watercolor-esque look is unique too, while moody soundtrack will make you a fan for life. It's not quite on par with the best horror games, but this is a teen horror with a great atmosphere. Lost in Random tells the story of Even, a girl who lives in a world where everything is decided by the roll of a die. This die dooms her beloved sister to a terrible fate, but Even has had enough of destiny and decides to find her sister and bring her back. However, there is no life without the die, and as such, Even has one following her wherever she goes. Dice rolls determine certain situations in combat, as well as the narrative, which is filled with fun characters and great voice acting. There aren't a lot of games that try something entirely new, but the story of Lost in Random is truly a breath of fresh air. A game made with a lot of love and yet doomed to end up on a list of underrated Switch games. The world itself is reminiscent of mildly spooky things like Coraline by Neil Gaiman or The Nightmare Before Christmas Sunless, and the story is genuinely heartwarming. Dorfromantik gives you a stack of hexagonal tiles and tells you to put them together. If you fit a corner with houses on it next to another tile's corner with houses, you get points. This way, you can build giant cities and sprawling forests, but you always have to keep the board in mind that you slowly create that way. Find the best possible combinations to score points, and most importantly, not run out of tiles. On PC, the city-building puzzle Dorfromantik, made by a bunch of German game design students, was a great hit, but its subsequent arrival on Switch was quieter. That's likely because a lot of people can't imagine that playing a tile-based game with a controller is that much fun, but Dorfromantik actually clears that hurdle without much fuss. What you get is the idea game for handheld sessions. Something about Dorfromantik glues you to the screen, forever convinced you can make an even bigger board. As a shipwrecked sailor, you make your way through an uncharted, mysterious island. You have to fight your way through. There are plenty of Metroidvanias on the Switch, and not least of all, actual Metroid games, but Salt and Sanctuary comes with genuine Souls-like combat, something a lot of Metroidvanias attempt, but not many of them get right. Salt and Sanctuary is an unexpectedly beautiful game stuffed with things to see and inevitably kill, and it's one of the very best games of this specific genre. While there is a sequel called Salt and Sacrifice, we're not necessarily sure we like it better. The differences between the two games don't always land with us, and the sequel is at its best when it works like the original, so we decided on Salt and Sanctuary. At first, you may think Card Shark is a card game, but it's actually much more than that. Card Shark is actually a game about cheating at cards. As you can imagine, that isn't always easy, and Card Shark presents the different ways of cheating as a series of mini-games that take patience and often some trial and error to get right. Once you figure it out, there is a genuine glee that comes with every successful cheating attempt. Card Shark is well-designed, both in terms of its mechanics as well as art design, and while it's not the kind of game to play over and over, there's currently nothing like it. The ups and downs of teenage life can often feel word-ending at times, at least that's how a lot of us remember it. If Found bottles that feeling and uses it to tell one of the most well-told stories of heartbreak and the growing pains of life you can play on the Nintendo Switch. With a beautiful hand-drawn art style and a dreamy soundtrack, If Found is well worth checking out for fans of visual novels and games that focus on telling stories through smart and experimental game design. The game is set in the west of Ireland in 1993, following Cassio as she recalls a particularly difficult time in her life. There's awkward teen romance, a world-ending black hole, and some very good dialogue indeed. Well worth checking out. Tchia is a real hidden gem on Nintendo Switch for lovers of open-world exploration. You play as Tchia, a little girl on a quest to save her father from evil forces. To complete her quest, Tchia must explore a vast, lush island environment based on New Caledonia, a tiny island in the Pacific Ocean. As you sail around the archipelagos, you'll use Tchia's soul-jumping powers to possess animals, and even inanimate objects like coconut. Take control of dolphins and dart quickly across the ocean, hitch a ride with birds of paradise and reach new heights and fire coconuts at enemies to break down encampments. There's a real love for the island's inspired setting that permeates throughout Tchia. The game is voiced by local talent in traditional languages, and there's plenty of in-game lore to teach you about some of the customs and traditions you'll find in a world like Tchia's.